and welcome to You Can Do It Too, a podcast highlighting regular folks who followed their dreams and made it happen. I'm Joan Hutchinson, your restaurant maven. I've been described as a risk taker, though I never thought of myself that way. My mom always told me I could do or be whatever I wanted as long as I set my mind to it, and I believed her. I've moved across the country more than once, was an actor in LA doing theater, independent films, and even stand-up. I ran a successful catering company that led to owning and operating an award-winning Southern California restaurant. All this prior to earning a bachelor's degree in business management and marketing. Listen, you don't need a degree to accomplish your dreams. You need drive, passion, and belief in yourself, along with some caring folks who support you and believe in you. Since then, I've gone on to work in country clubs, casinos, a culinary school, and hotels. I've been coaching and consulting with small business owners for the last few years and blogging with business advice. I wanted to do more, to share more, to reach more of you. I decided to talk with folks I admire. Lots of amazing 30-somethings, even some remarkable 20-somethings, and of course, more seasoned folks who kick ass at what they do. To show you, you can do it too. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, my guest is Amy Gale with Anchored Roots Vineyard and Winery. Amy's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She earned her BA in communications at St. Norbert's College with an intention of becoming a private event planner. After graduation, Amy worked for the Harley-Davidson Museum in programs and events, so she was well on her way. But she met her now husband, Eric, and that all changed. The idea of a vineyard and winery crossed their minds, and they took action. They moved to Washington State so Eric could continue his education in viticulture, and Amy began learning about the wine industry. In her 5 years in Washington, she worked for a family winery managing their direct-to-consumer operations for their 2 tasting rooms. This included wine club management, event management, retail sales, website maintenance, and so much more. Then 2020 came and the world changed for the Gales in lots of ways. Amy had her first son, Henry, the global pandemic hit, and they decided to go home. They set roots in Egg Harbor, Wisconsin, and the first Anchored Roots Vineyard plantings the summer of 2020. And with construction delays, volatile changes in supply costs, and all the havoc the pandemic brought, they opened the tasting room in September of 2022, and the rest is history in the making. Thanks so much for joining me today, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
Yay, I'm so excited. It was such a pleasure meeting you and visiting your tasting room here in Egg Harbor. I was just so inspired by you and your story. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
So can you tell us, what was it that made you decide you wanted a winery of your own?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a fun trajectory. I met Eric when I was about a month before graduation, and I was on my way back to Milwaukee to go work for the museum and kind of set into private events. That's something that I've always enjoyed entertaining. I've always enjoyed hosting. From little on, I was always running around making sure that everyone had, their waters, they had their snacks, they had everything that they wanted and needed. So I liked hosting. I liked making sure that people liked what they were doing that day. And so events seemed like a natural fit. So in pursuing that, and after meeting Eric, we kind of looked at our backgrounds. He grew up working on a local farm and really liked that lifestyle. And if you're called to work in agriculture, that's a really special thing because it's a commitment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So he pursued a biology degree, really enjoyed the plant sciences. He was a hobby brewer on the side. So that was something that we did together a little bit. And we said, well, we wanted to work for ourselves. We could see from the day we met that our future was going to be very intertwined, both personally and professionally. And we were both really driven from the get-go. And decided, well, let's see what we like doing. I like hospitality. I really like making people happy. I like making sure that people are having a good time. He likes working with plants. He likes working, outdoors, having a little bit more of an independent and get dirty, get your hands dirty, and create something. So we said, well, we're in Wisconsin. What about a brewery? Can we make beer? And we said, well, we could do that. We had concerns that maybe the market was getting a little more saturated than we were comfortable with. We said, well, what else is out there? We were about 22, 23 at the time. Well, we like wine. We don't really know much about it, but we enjoy it. We appreciate it. We know that it's there, and it's a whole world that we could learn about. And we said, well, his background, maybe moving forward, he could learn a little bit more about grapevines. I could happen to pull my event background into the winery side of things, and we started talking and said, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can make of it. So after he finished school a year after I did, so he moved out to Washington to pursue his master's in viticulture. So he's got a degree in horticulture, technically, with the specialization in viticulture. And we got married a few years later. So I went out, and Central Washington is all vineyards, all wineries. There's over 1,000 in the state. It's really just an incredible industry. They're about 60 years ahead of where we are here in Wisconsin as far as grape growing and just the wine industry development and the brand that they're creating for that part of the world. So the goal was just learn anything and everything you can, with the hope that we'd eventually be able to bring it home and come back to our roots, and to our people. And this is where both of our families are, and that's where we knew we'd end up someday. And we just hit the ground running, doing anything and everything we could to make it real, make it happen.
Wow. So you started with the idea that you want to work together. You want it to be agriculture and events. And so that's how you came up with wine.
Pretty much, yeah. It was looking at what we enjoy doing. We wanted to make sure that we were enjoying life to the fullest, and what was that going to take. And I think that ultimately the end goal is to be able to work for yourself, and just really surround yourself with the people that you know and love all the time. And if you find someone that you can work with really well at home and at work, you're a really lucky person.
And rare.
Very. But yeah, we wanted to be outside. We were hoping that we were going to be able to have a family and to be able to raise them on in a business that we would have been happy with growing up too. So it's yes. Trying to build us all the way around.
I love that. My husband and I did the same thing. So it's fun to see your kids at the winery. It just takes me back to the days when my kids took their naps in the office at the restaurant, and it's lovely. And you're right, not a lot of people get that really incredible experience of having the business be part of your family. And it's just so cool to see. I love that. So speaking of family, what was the reaction of your family and friends when you said, yeah, we're going to open a winery? First, we're moving to Washington State, so that's the plan.
Yeah. It's, I think the first reaction is always, wow, like that's big. That's not a little side project. That was something that we wanted to make sure everyone knew we were going in this as our profession. We were going to do this full time. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't an after work project or a weekend project or a seasonal project. This was something we were very, very serious about. And thankfully, we both come from very, very supportive families. I think that our parents could see from little on that we were going to be very driven. We were be very motivated, fairly intelligent people that were going to do something really interesting with their lives. And when we were able to put our brains together, it just seemed like the stars started to align. And there was a lot of sadness that we're moving so far away. We truly got married in June, and by July we were already in Washington. So we didn't really get a chance to establish the big family aspect here in Wisconsin, which was a little bit sad, but also really, I think, a special time for Eric and I to get to know each other and really learn how we could depend on each other because we were so far away from family. But even so, thankfully with technology, we were able to get a lot of the support system, even from being halfway across the country, and stay really well connected with everyone. But we've gotten nothing but support and encouragement and positivity since day one. And truly, we did a little soft opening before we opened to the public, and just sent out an invitation to everyone that we basically knew. And we had such a wonderful turnout of people who maybe we haven't seen in 5 or 10 years. Or, I had a cousin come in from New York, and it was just amazing that people were making a really big deal out of something that we have been working on, but I don't think it's really set in yet what we're doing and what scale of an impact we're kind of making on this community. So it's just, it's really nice that our families and friends do recognize it, and they're showing that support for us every single day.
That is great. That is great. Like I said in my intro, you do need people that love you and support you. It's hard to maintain the momentum when you have a lot of negativity around you. So it's great to hear that, you had that family support. So part of my question is, so you knew you were going to go to Washington State, decided that that's where he was going to get his degree, his master's. How did you know where to go from there? Like, did you have a plan laid out before leaving for Washington? And wait, before you answer that, we do need to take a second to hear from our sponsors. So we'll come right back and you can answer that question. Okay, well, welcome back. Thanks again to Amy with Anchored Roots Vineyard and Winery for joining me today. And I just asked you if you had a plan laid out before you left for Washington towards this winery that you now own and operate.
Yeah, hyper type A personality. There's always a plan. So before we moved out to Washington, I looked at, Eric was already living out there, which was great. So we at least had a location that we were looking within. So I reached out to probably 20, 25 wineries in the area and said, here's my skill set. I don't see you're hiring right now, but if you see something in my background that fits with your portfolio, your brand, let's see if we can talk. So obviously promoting myself as having had an events background, wineries and events kind of go hand in hand, or at least I thought they did. And there are enough people out there who I think had that similar mindset. So by the time I moved, I had 2 job offers on the table. One was working part-time. It was a permanent position though, for family, working in the tasting room. So pouring wine Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, for a short period of time. And I thought, well, that would be a great experience. It's a permanent position. I could probably grow with that company. But it's the opposite schedule of my new husband, my new lifestyle. Is that something that I really want? Maybe. And then the other position was a full-time temporary position working as a logistics coordinator for a wow. While a woman was out on maternity leave. And that basically entailed preparing.
Those are very different opportunities.
Very, very different. So I tried to sit down and think what was going to be best. And the logistics position is basically palletizing wine, building case goods, very manual warehouse work, driving a forklift, putting those pallets on the truck, getting them ready for distribution into grocery stores, restaurants, and what have you. And then basically managing our warehouse inventory, making sure that all of our case goods are brought in from their larger production facility. And I said, well, that's less relevant for where I think I'm going long term. But there was something about that I said, well, I want to try it. I want to go for it. I want to get in with this family winery, and we're gonna take the risk and see where it goes. So I took that 12-week job, and by the end of it, things had worked out so well that they wanted me to take on their private events. They had just recently moved their production facility out to a new, larger facility, and they had this big warehouse. And they said, "Well, you've got an events background. Let's build on that. People are inquiring about hosting a wedding here, big parties and what have you. So let's build on it." So that was kind of the start of my trajectory. I shot a couple darts out there to see what would stick, and you take a risk and hope it works out for the best, and you put in the sweat equity to make something happen. But yeah.
Nice. That's great. It was probably great to experience that logistics part of it, because now at least how that end of it is. I mean, you wouldn't know that otherwise if you're working in the tasting room, right?
Exactly. And that was part of what intrigued me about it, is I thought that if I was in the tasting room, I would see what the company wanted the end consumer to see, which isn't everything that puts a business together. There's so much that happens behind the scenes. And the family that I was working for, truly it was a brother-sister duo. He handled the winemaking, and she handled the consumer facing, which is not unlike how Eric and I have structured our business too. But I thought, it would be a great resource and an opportunity to learn the ins and outs. If I could really take every day and just see what opportunities are out there to learn more about how their business operates and how everything works together. And obviously now we have a warehouse to manage too. As we start to explore the different channels, possibly for distribution or getting into restaurants, et cetera, having that in my back pocket is great. And hey, I learned how to drive a forklift, and that's a great skill to have.
Sure is. It sure is. Okay, so then you spent your time there, and while you were there, were you writing your business plan while you were there? What was going on with that?
Yeah, so I worked there for about 5 years, and we spent the first probably 2 or 3 just learning how things work. What questions to ask, what does it take to put this all together. And then, while I was working for their event side of things, I'm managing eventually their wine club. And by the time I left, I was managing all of their direct to consumer operations. And that was enough pieces of information that we could start putting together a business plan. So we actually reached out to the Door County Economic Development Corporation back here to start getting connected to the right people in order to put together a location-specific business plan. So, looking at different sites that we were going to potentially purchase property for, and getting all of the zoning regulations and the financial structure to be able to put together our projections for what this kind of a business would cost to construct, and all the not so fun stuff that you have to put in before you can actually get going on the property itself.
Right. So you turned to the Door County Economic Development Corporation. Did they help you with funding sources? Did they help you? Because there's so much involved when you're looking for funding, right? And if you're building a building, there's not an existing business for you to take financials from. So that's a special kind of financing, right?
Yeah. So we were working with them for honestly probably about 3 years before we even decided to move forward. So they were just a really good resource. They connected us with the University of Wisconsin Green Bay Small Business Development Center, and there was a contact there that we went back and forth with, and he would constantly ask us questions to keep diving deeper into our portfolio and into our business plans and our finances. And he had a couple of templates that we could work from, which was really helpful. Nice. But you're right, this is a very specific industry, so it was a matter of looking at research that had been done prior to and pulling bits and pieces of it, and then you throw in a pandemic, and then you can throw all that out the window and start from scratch. But it was, there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of really great resources with the SBDC, which was awesome. And the DCEDC did help us get connected with some good funding. Ultimately, we are grateful to work in a small town where we had relationships with one of the banks nearby, and they were willing to take the risk on us. But it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge project. So you talked about finding information on other companies that have done this similar type of thing so that you could build out your business plan. Where did you find that info? Like, was there a specific, obviously you were working with the Door County Economic Development and the small business. Were they directing you, giving you websites to check? Is that how you found that?
I can attribute most of this to my husband. Eric is a scientist through and through, so research is his number one. He will not go out to dinner before he's researched the menu thoroughly of all the options in the area. So I love him dearly for it. But that's what ultimately made this a lot easier. Was that he again is also a perpetual student. He's always learning, so he's got a lot of those resources, which was wonderful. I think specifically the pieces that we were pulling from was a business plan from Cornell, that they had a research paper out there on some similar structured business, but ultimately, you do have to take bits and pieces and consider. I think the one we were working off of was about 10 years outdated by the time we were putting it together, so you always have to include a little bit of inflation changes and all that kind of good stuff. But ultimately, that was where UWGB came in, and he appreciated the template that we were working with, and then took it to a more local and current place and time to really tweak it into the current situation.
Right. It's so nice to know that those resources are out there for people that are looking for space and want to build a business of their own, to know that those resources are out there. The UWGB Small Business Center, that's free, right?
It is.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, there are these free resources. So Small Business Association, and they can help you find funding, bankers, and help you with business plan writing. Also, there's SCORE, the Senior Corps of Retired Entrepreneurs, I think, that will help you with business plan writing. And they'll look over your business plan once you've written it, give you some ideas and tweaks. Did you use any of that?
I hadn't heard of SCORE, but really our back and forth before we even presented our project for funding was all with UWGB, and that was all free. And truly, we worked with it. We still work with them in some capacity, but truly, it was a 3-year ongoing back and forth. And the wealth of knowledge that he was able to provide was just beyond compare.
Nice. It's so nice. That's awesome. Plus, the fact that he's right here, UW Green Bay is not quite Door County, but it's pretty close. Closest big town we have, large community that we have to us. So,
exactly.
So they probably are familiar with local resources and can really help with that.
Definitely. I mean, it's nice that all the development centers and the tourism boards, they're all very intertwined. So they're very familiarized with what you have going on, which made the whole process a lot easier. That just the familiarity of neighboring towns.
Right. And we have here in Door County, Wisconsin, we have our chamber is for the entire county, since we are a bunch of small little towns that make up the county. And our chamber is called Destination Door County. They are a great place for marketing. They market the county and all of our businesses here. But they are very connected as well. So anyone who is looking to start a business in Door County that doesn't necessarily know about the Economic Development Center, Destination Door County would direct you to them. So they're a great resource. But chambers in any area would do that. And big cities, just the city has a chamber of commerce. So I highly recommend, if you're looking to open a business, always look for your chamber of commerce, because they are a great resource as well. And of course, they give you any information you need for free, but you can always join them. And a lot of them, and I know our chamber here is starting to have more educational events happen. So I know that when I was in California, our chamber, every time we had a meeting, they had an educational piece, and that made it worth me spending the time, besides just the networking events, but spending the time to go to those, because those educational things for free are always very helpful. And so. And of course, as a business and accountability coach, I always recommend having a business plan. But you have to think of it as a guide when you have that plan. It's not the law, because it could change depending on whatever's happening, like the pandemic. But it should evolve as your business does. You want to always look at that plan, revisit it, at least annually, because you may want to change it as you grow. Speaking of as you grow, so right now, Anchored Roots has a really lovely tasting room that you got set up, and it looks out on all the vines, and I'm sure that you have plans for events there, right? In the vineyard?
Yeah, we do. We definitely do. So we have 6 acres planted right now, which they're all new. So they'll be ready to start producing about 2024. And we obviously have our winery as well. So our production facility is all set. It's all running. We brought in about 8 tons of grapes this past harvest season from other vineyards, and so that way we can get a kickstart on our winemaking for this year. And then a little part of our portfolio will certainly be private events and events that we'll put on for the general public as well. So, I mean, looking forward, we have interest in doing some live music and some food trucks and some things like that to really engage the local community. Obviously, I enjoy doing events, but we had to flex a little bit too. So we want to be able to host some weddings and larger parties, but it's not the main focus of our business anymore. We had to adjust just a little bit since we're behind the bar day to day. That's our business, and we want to be at the forefront of it every single day. But we want to do a little bit of a lot of things to really engage people and make this a destination for people to come visit and stay and just really take home a memorable experience. We want them to enjoy every minute that they've spent here and leave feeling just really refreshed and relaxed. And the biggest compliment that anyone could ever pay you is to come back for an annual visit. If they're only up here for a weekend or a long weekend once a year, and you get to be part of their rotation, that's a huge honor. So that's kind of what we're working towards.
I'm sure that's going to happen for you. The two of you are lovely people, so I'm sure you'll get repeats. So as you were learning and putting all this together, do you have a mentor? Did you take in people that you worked with in Washington State or here, that you have a mentor? Or that's just a question I like to ask.
Yeah. I would say from little on, I kind of had an inspiration. One of my aunts worked in special events, and she was just a really wonderful person. And she is unfortunately no longer with us, but she certainly instilled this sense of hospitality and desire to work with people in me. But as far as a winery specific mentor, no, I think this was just something that Eric and I kind of concocted, and we've really just relied on each other to keep moving forward and keep bettering ourselves and each other and the ideas that we've got going. So it's a matter of diving into the community, and obviously we've got there's some great local wine being made here, so taking the knowledge and resources of our new community members. So I think we're certainly getting to the point of having new mentors in this area, if that kind of makes sense. But
Sure.
when we were developing the project, it was more just Eric and I, and long car rides home for Christmas. When you've got 30 hours in the car with your spouse and no one else, you do a deep dive into where you want to go and what you want to see happening. Because in the middle of winter, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That really tests your relationship, I'm assuming. Well, I know from experience, but, the two of you have such passion for what you're doing that I can see that, that you're gonna feed off each other and just keep going, right?
That's the hope. That's the intent.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to start their own business? Not necessarily winery. I'm sure those are rare, but for any person who wanted to open a business from their dream, from what they found they want to do.
Number one is you have to be flexible. I mentioned before my hyper type A personality, and that was one thing I learned I had to jump on board with really quickly, was learning how to be flexible, learn how to adjust, learn how to be okay with change, be okay with things not going the way that I had put them on paper. This is when it's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And this is the order it's going to happen, because that's not how it goes. You don't control everything. You don't control everyone. You don't control anything, really, which was the big shock for me when we started putting all these pieces together. But ultimately, as you're building a new business, you're going to have 10,000 things going on at any given moment. And if 10 of those things maybe go awry, it's okay. You're still doing a really, really good job. And you're still going to keep moving forward. It just might not be in the direction that you originally anticipated, but there are many roads that lead to the same place. And that's just the piece that you have to keep remembering, that you can still achieve what you set out to do. It just might not be in the exact framework that you anticipated.
Right. I strongly believe that fear is what holds us all back and from accomplishing our dreams. But it sounds to me like you had your plan, your goal, and what you wanted, and it meant a lot to you. You talked about the importance of your family being part of your business and all of your life, and it seems like that was your driving force. Do you think that's true?
Definitely. Eric and I both come from wonderful families individually, and now that we're together, it's just strengthened and grown. And now that we've got two little kiddos of our own too, they're the driving force. They're what keep us going every day. They're with us in the tasting room almost every day. So it's definitely. Most people would say we're crazy for intertwining business and our personal lives so closely, but we think that we're just really blessed and grateful to be living this life that we've put forth.
Yes, I love that. And that is before we sign off. That's one of the things that's really important when you're thinking about your goals and your plans for the future. It's so important to include the why. Why do you want that to happen? You know, you don't want to say, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Why do you want to be a millionaire? Because I want a Mercedes. Why is a Mercedes important to you? You have to find the why, because when those things happen where you slip or where things don't go the way you wrote down in your plan, you still stay the course because you see the end. The end is your goal. Your why is what pulls you through all those hard times. So yeah, I think that so important to getting through any of the fear that gets in the way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And I don't know that fear was ever part of our vocabulary for this process. I think it was just, this is what we want to do and we have to do it. There's no other option at this point. We've made up our minds and we have to try it. And you know, if we take all of our knowledge and our passion and are just genuine people, there's no way we're going to fail. So I don't think that there was ever any moment of fear necessarily. There were lots of hiccups, and that's okay. But you know, my biggest fear in this whole process was coming on a podcast today to be interviewed. I mean, talk about fear. That's that for an introvert, that's an intimidating piece. But opening up a winery and vineyard and doing what we've always felt that we should be doing, that's not as scary as you might think. You feel the pieces falling into place despite all the hurdles, and you just know that you're doing what you were meant to do in this life, and there's nothing that should stand in your way of that.
What a great way to end this podcast. Oh my God. Thank you so much for joining me today, Amy. And thank you all for listening. Thanks to Chris Hutchinson for producing. Why am I doing this podcast? Because it's important to me that you know we all have it in us to succeed. My guests weren't born into royalty. They're normal people like you and me who saw an opportunity and ran with it. New episodes are posted every other Sunday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Like and subscribe for access to all my content. And if you're looking for help with your restaurant or hospitality business, go to www.yourrestaurantmaven.com, read my blog, and connect with me for consulting and coaching opportunities. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.